Hello, film fans. Welcome to the Film vs. Film podcast. My name is Martin Harries, your host. I'm a filmmaker on occasion, but mainly can't stop yapping about movies. On this podcast, every episode, I pick a topic from a film that's coming out at the cinema or on streaming. I pick a favorite film from that topic and battle it out against a guest to decide which film would become the greatest film of all time. If you enjoy this podcast, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. Please enjoy part 2. Hello, welcome back to the show. Of course, you're listening to part 2, and this is the part where we have a look at your Instagram responses from the previous episode, and that previous episode was on Tim Burton films, and we've had quite a few responses from you guys this time. Anton Kinnerlove went with Alice in Wonderland. Not sure why. Very nice guy, but I'm not sure there. The Matt and Mark movie show went with Batman. IKMAYD went with Ed Wood. The Movie Gap, Chase from the Movie Gap went with Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Andrew Corns from the Revisionist Almanac podcast went with Batman 89. Jake from the Movie Boners went with Mars Attacks. Ugh, that still freaks me out, that film. Spoil My Movie. Ellen Chris went with Big Fish. And Georgia Macy from the Comfort Films podcast went with Corpse Bride. So lots of films chosen for Tim Burton for once. So Thomas and Dana, what is your Tim Burton film of choice for you guys?
All right, so you're going to defer. Okay.
I'll defer.
I'm not a huge Tim Burton guy. I actually, because some friends of mine wanted to see the new Beetlejuice movie, which I'm sure is what precipitated your episodes. I actually watched the original Beetlejuice yesterday morning before I went and saw it last night with some friends. I actually didn't mind the sequel. I still don't know what to make of the original. I don't quite understand why people really love it in the way that they do. The POV on that is kind of awkward because given that the title character is Beetlejuice, he doesn't show up into the film like really until 50 minutes into a 90-minute runtime. So more than halfway through the film, it didn't quite make sense to me. And we focused so much on Gina Davis and Alec Baldwin that I wasn't quite sure about that one. We discussed Batman 89 not too very long ago.
Yeah.
I think if I were to default, it's probably that one. Although one that I actually was quite charmed by when I was doing my research for the 2005 Revisionist Almanac episode, Corpse Bride actually isn't too bad.
Yeah, I like Corpse Bride. It's got some great charm to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
How about you, Dana?
I'm not also a very big Tim Burton fan. Yeah. This film, and then pretty much, maybe Batman would fall in here as the lead of the rest of them.
Right.
I watched about 5 minutes of the remake of Willy
Alice
Wonka.
in Wonderland. Oh, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Okay.
Oof. Wow. No, I guess if you want to give children nightmares,
just say Ed Wood and let's move on, Dad.
Yeah, it's Ed Wood by far. I loved Ed Wood. I thought it was campy. I thought it was great. I thought it caught so much of the spirit of Ed Wood. He got just a fantastic performance out of both Johnny Depp and Martin Landau in that film. That it was that's by far the one that I think is the best.
Yeah, that is. I think a lot of people consider Ed Wood as his best film. Yeah, it's a great one. So we are talking George Clooney films for this episode. So it's the guest's turn this time around. So what film did you guys go for?
I let you pick this one, Dad. So it's kind of on you. I have my own reasons for wanting to do this one, but you start.
Ocean's 11. I think if you've ever seen interviews with George Clooney, and I'm a big fan, I've watched him countless times on clips I've seen of Graham Norton. I think he's phenomenal when Clooney's on that show because he gets to be himself.
Yeah.
And when he has a natural charm, a kind of boyish humor that he has. And to me, the Ocean's 11 movie, more than any other, allowed him to show the level of humor and personality and just his own natural instincts and charm comes through that movie more than anything else. Is he just being himself? Maybe, but I think it gives him the greatest opportunity to be more like himself. And so I think that charm and that fun comes through in this movie and lets you know exactly why he was and is a great movie star.
Michael Clayton, this is not. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a great dichotomy or a chasm between the two movies. One where he is his movie star best. This to me is him kind of showing off that charisma, that award-winning smile. It's kind of his franchise film. I mean, he's not doing, he did Batman, but we try to forget that.
He does too, yeah. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, unless he's coming back at the end of Flash. But anyway, we digress. This is his franchise. And it wasn't at the time that it was supposed to be a franchise, but I also think these are the films that he's probably known best for. And the kind of persona that he broadcasts in public is closest match to this. Not necessarily because I think it's himself per se, but I think it's the most comfortable and the one that ejects the easiest, the one that makes people like George Clooney as an actor, as a movie star, essentially. And so if we're going to really analyze George Clooney films, you take this one because it is the one he's probably most well known for. And we took Michael Clayton. I would hope you picked it partially, although I know this isn't quite the reason, but that's his probably best acting performance.
Yeah, I certainly picked it because of the Oscar connection and his nomination, and just because I hadn't seen it before, and the trailers looked like he performed an amazing performance. So, were there any other films in contention for you guys, or was it just Ocean's 11?
I had 4 films in mind and had to pick from them. Michael Clayton was one of them. Up in the Air. Mm-hmm. And one that I really love that's underrated, but he was also the director, and that is Good Night and Good Luck.
Cool. Out of Sight would have been in contention had I had a choice for a third one, but that's fine.
Yeah, I really want to see certainly Out of Sight again, and I think I said in part 1, like, I really enjoyed it, but I felt like I was slightly disappointed as well, because I think just all the hype around it, it was Soderbergh coming through, and I was like, oh, okay, I don't see how this film is particularly special, why it's particularly special. So I definitely need to revisit that one in particular. So guys, what happens in Ocean's 11?
In a shadowy underworld of high-stakes heists, Danny Ocean emerges from a New Jersey prison with a glint in his eye and a plan that could make history. Recently paroled, this suave con artist wastes no time in assembling a team of the most skilled and cunning criminals. His target? The impenetrable vault of 3 Las Vegas casinos, all owned by the ruthless Terry Benedict. Danny and his right-hand man, Rusty Ryan, together recruit a motley crew. Linus Caldwell, a pickpocket with nimble fingers, Basher Tarr, an explosives expert with a flair for the dramatic, and the enigmatic Amazing Yen, an acrobat who can slip through the tiniest of spaces. Each member brings a unique style and skill to the table, making the team a well-oiled machine of deception and precision. As the plan unfolds, the stakes rise higher. The team navigates a labyrinth of security systems, outwits Benedict's vigilant guards, and executes a series of intricate cons with clockwork precision. The tension mounts as they inch closer to the prize, a staggering $160 million. But for Danny, it's not just about the money, it's personal. Benedict is the current lover of Danny's ex-wife Tess, adding a layer of revenge to the heist. In a world where trust is a rare commodity and betrayal lurks around every corner, Danny Ocean and his crew aim to pull off the greatest con of their lives. Will they succeed, or will the house always win?
Very well done there, Thomas.
I had AI, ChatGPT, write one in the style of Dashiell Hammett. And actually, yeah. So I wasn't sure whether he was doing it or I was going to do it, but there's some good lines in here.
Right.
Sorry. I just assumed,
Yeah.
So initial reactions for me, yeah, I really enjoyed it. It kind of sometimes it feels like almost like a hangout film.
Mm-hmm.
It's just great spending time with these characters, and it gives off a lot of style, and it feels very cool, and it's very slick and stylish. All those things that you associate with this kind of type of heist movie from Soderbergh, and yeah, it's a lot of fun, you know. And yet there's some really interesting kind of rug pulls as well, which I certainly didn't see coming. And I think in terms of the tension and the stakes, I don't think it's really about that for me. Like there is certainly tension there, but it's not edge of your seat stuff like you can't bear what's happening on screen, that type of thing. But I think if it did that, it would go way off tonally. So it's just a really interesting kind of relaxed, cool, stylish tone that this film goes with, and I enjoyed that aspect of it. Dana, what did you make of this one? Initial reactions for you?
It's just a film that's a feel-good film.
Yeah.
I mean, it's you enjoy the characters, and what makes it interesting is even though it's a heist film, the people they're stealing from are worse people than they are.
Yeah,
which makes it kind of fun. And the characters in there are so diverse, and they did such a good job of casting in general that I thought it was just fun. You're rooting for them. Half the fun is just seeing how these characters are going to ally into a group and set about the plan in motion. I think there was just some really great performances, and it was just a fun movie overall. And there's nothing about this that I don't enjoy every time I watch it.
Thomas?
Yeah, you said a hangout movie. That's exactly what this is. It's almost to the point at this. Yeah, I probably watched this maybe 40 times in my life at this point, given that it was, well, it was kind of I think I mentioned this to you before we started recording.
Yeah.
I've often said The Departed is like the first real adult film to me, but that's more of the like extreme measures of adult, you know, when you're kind of getting into the
with way more swearing.
Swearing and violence and you know, a lot of other things that are more graduated. This is the first one where I'm like, oh, some of these things can be introduced, but they don't have to be like excessive. And so I remember watching this probably 11, 12 years old, thinking it was really cool. And I've just continued to watch it multiple times, probably every year. It's in a certain repertoire of films that I can easily put on at any time, and just I enjoy hanging out with all of the characters. It's a great casting, just up and down the list. All of them seem to have great chemistry with each other. There's an aesthetic that Soderbergh creates just throughout all three movies, and I'll get to that in a moment, why I think his style leads to why these movies work more than anything else. But it's just a fun environment to hang out with. You get to hang out with guys who are, by all standards, technically the bad guys, but they feel a lot more fun than the actual straight-laced guys.
I think the film does a great job of just balancing all these characters as well, and yet still keeping George Clooney and Brad Pitt as the main stars of the movie, you know. You know, at the end of the day, this film is called Ocean's 11. You've got 11 characters to really kind of service in this film. And I feel like everyone gets like a really cool, significant moment in the film, be acting or screenplay related. It's really well done in that aspect as well. But yet still keeping that balance of like keeping George Clooney and Brad Pitt as the focus.
The only real Ocean's character that I don't think kind of gets their own moments is Livingston Dell, the like technical aspect guy. But even he gets like 2 scenes to himself. Yeah. It's just, I think he's the least memorable of any of the characters in here. Whereas you definitely know Elliot Gould and you know Carl Reiner as performers. Don Cheadle, even with one of the worst accents in movie history.
Yes, as a British person, I couldn't believe what was coming out of his mouth. That was bad. I don't understand the decision there.
Dick
Why
Van
he's
Dyke,
English
in Mary Poppins level bad?
Yeah, it's close, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that was actually taught to him by a British character actor in Hollywood if I showed you a picture of me, you go, oh, that guy.
Right.
Yeah, and he always resented that because he's like, well, the guy taught me this accent. So that's great. Yeah, okay.
I think he was just taking the piss, really. I guess maybe he wanted the role instead.
Oh, it's not hard to believe. But even so, still, even when Julia Roberts shows up like 45 minutes into the film, and she's like the third biggest name on the poster behind Pitt and Clooney.
Yeah.
It doesn't really feel like she's given less to do. Like, she's still a central figure to this all, and to be able to have that level of balance between a team up situation of this many characters where you feel like it's not an out of place Matt Damon movie or Brad Pitt movie or Clooney movie. I think he does a really good job of balancing all of these characters and giving them all kind of a character defining moment all to themselves, starting with the actual team up scene where you get the montage of all of them individually.
Mm-hmm.
So directing then, like in the beginning, like Steven Soderbergh goes for quite a relaxed way of directing and just lets George Clooney and Brad Pitt just eat up the screen. He's just letting them be the focus of being movie stars for me. Like the tone of the film and drive of the film comes from this like jazzy soundtrack as well. It definitely gives it a great pace to it. Then the flair starts to come in when we meet Elliot Gould's character with all that chest hair. It's quite extraordinary. And you see these like brilliant flashbacks of people getting caught through the decades. Like Soderbergh uses great, like perfectly done freeze frames in those scenes. That was brilliantly done. Then when we go into like the recruitment scenes, as you said, Thomas, I like how some are very short and some feel kind of long, but in a good way. Like, so I like how they're committed to the joke in how long it takes. That's how long it takes for that scene to work for this character. But I think my favorite recruitment scene is Matt Damon's, where Clooney is like watching him on the Chicago train, and the camera is like really kind of stuttering, like we're missing a few frames as we go, like being undercranked. I love how he just picks up this guy's wallet, and it's just very clear and yet very quickly done. Plus, I love the little like tilt down later in the bar when Matt Damon takes back the wallet from Clooney. That was great. Just some great like variations in the recruitment scenes for me. Have you guys got like a favorite recruitment scene for any of the characters?
Go ahead.
Well, to be honest, the one scene, which is it cracks me up every time because it's people debating with themselves in the film often. That's and it's the scene where Brad Pitt's laying with his head on the bar, and Clooney goes, "Well, we've got 10 now. Do you think we need one more?" Yeah, you're right. We need one more. Yeah. And he doesn't say a word, doesn't move, doesn't flinch. He conveys it without saying it anything, or at least Clooney does. So that to me is just hilarious. Between that and the whole scene where they're going, again, the comedy where they're sitting in circus and they're watching them perform. He goes, which one is the great Yen? The little Chinese guy. And Clooney kind of, okay, I'm just going to let it go.
He doesn't look that impressive. Okay.
There's so many great jokes in this entire like montage. What about Phil Turpentine? Dead. Did you send flowers? No, I dated his wife. I mean, cool. It's just throwaway lines like that. And it's the chemistry built between the two. They just feel so comfortable together. But for me, even though he's had a storied career, Elliot Gould's recruitment, and lest we forget, you're still in the middle of the fucking desert.
Yeah.
It gets me every single time. But his telling of, that guy tasted fresh oxygen for once. He came, they saw, or he saw, they conquered.
I just love the moments where Clooney and Pitt are just walking away from him and just like, okay, you don't want to be part of it, using a lot of reverse psychology. And then as soon as he stands up and walks towards them, he's like, oh, okay, yeah, he's in now.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
So who did you have in mind? And then it jumps right into the rest of the recruitment with all of that. But the other one for me that sticks out is Carl Reiner's scene, because it slows down the pace so much. It changes the musical tone, and you know by the cue that this is somebody that you're gonna have to kind of like slightly woo. So when he's sitting there peeling an orange and we're at the dog track and it's an older guy, you know, my doctor says I need vitamins.
We'll just take vitamins.
And he doesn't say anything. He asks him what the score is, and he doesn't say anything. He leans over and whispers in him. It's the one where he actually had to reveal something, but they didn't want to reveal too much, so it was a whisper. So it was different or unique than all the others.
Well, there's a certain wooing involved in this, whereas like the Damon recruitment, it's just much more, we're going to hit you over the head. We think that you're talented. You came highly recommended. So but you're in or out right now. You know, we don't need to like coax you into this type of thing. We don't need to give you box seats at the dog track.
No.
Whisper in your ear type of thing.
And the thing is you're not sure whether he's going to do it until he reaches in his pocket and takes out the Tums. Because he supposedly got an ulcer. So the minute he starts thinking he's back in the game, his stomach starts acting up again.
As much as we've criticized Cheadle for his accent so far, they weren't expecting that shit.
So I love how like varied the recruitment scenes are. I thought that was really well done. I quite like the sequence where they have to steal this like pinch device thing to cut the power of the casino. Like Clooney and a few others enter this building, and Matt Damon has to stay in the van, but with the other two drivers, Casey Affleck and I forget the other guy's name, being idiots.
Scott Conn.
Conn, yeah.
Jimmy Conn's son. Are you alive? Are you a man? Evil Knievel. Shit.
But Soderbergh makes the decision not to go with Clooney, but to stay on Matt Damon, looking distressed and pissed off. Then he gets fed up and goes in the building in a wide shot, and in the same shot, Clooney and co come out of the building with the device. Then they soon realize Matt Damon isn't in the van, but we still stay outside of the building, and we can see from a distance, you know, Matt Damon is trying to escape through the stairs and like breaks the window and escapes that way. And I love the bit of comedy when they open up the van doors and Matt Damon like jumps on the roof of the van and you see him like climb down the windshield. So that was just a great little comedy scene, efficiently done without entering the building. So yeah, nothing too complex. Like you're not following all these characters around, lots of intercutting. No, just entirely outside the building, really efficient. Yeah, great for me.
One of the things I loved about the direction, the little nuggets he gave, the foreshadowing that you don't pick up on when you watch the film. And then at the end, it all comes clear what each of these little pieces meant in the film.
You mean like the air freshener?
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's several of them, in fact. And, you know, at the disclose, it all comes clear as to how everything was being done. I mean, the fact that they're showing the brothers with the robotics in their cars and all of this stuff never dawns on you the first time you watch it that the van is being run by a robot.
Oh, yeah. Or the fact that they're using the vault recreation for practice. And he says, well, not exactly. Well, okay, so what else is it for? If you're not using it for practice, we're staging it.
Yeah, you could definitely see that one coming a little bit, that they're definitely going to, you know, film something to, you know, replace the tapes with. I think that one you can see a little bit.
I didn't pick up on that at all the first time through. But then again, I watched it when I was 11.
Yeah,
so.
fair enough. Have you got a favorite scene then, Dana, for you?
For me, I guess I'll go back. It's just the montage. And again, the scene I wrote down again was, do we need one more? Because to me, every time I see that, I crack up.
Yeah. Thomas?
The montage is great. The poker game is equally great. With all, I mean, now these stars, these quote unquote like young kid stars, they really kind of lucked out that none of them really did anything after that. I mean, you have a bunch of B-list level stars, and obviously Clooney and Pitt are the most famous people in the room, and they're not the movie stars. But yeah, between that and just, again, layering on the comedy, I'm running away with your wife.
Yeah. It's weird in that scene that those, they don't have character names. They're as themselves. They're playing a version of themselves, which I found fascinating and a bit weird, but it still kind of worked anyway. Like, they all seem kind of like they're idiots, really. But yeah, they're playing themselves. Okay, fair enough. Let's go with it.
All Reds.
Yeah. No, that's not a flush.
Yeah. Oh, golly.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't have too many notes on the direction, really, for this film, but I found kind of the very understated nature of the very end, like where the whole crew are leaning against like the rail with the fountain in front of them, and one by one they leave. It just gives off this cool kind of style nature of the film that we had seen from the start, and I like that they will probably never see each other again, of course, until the sequel, but it just felt like a really cool heisty moment to end the film with all these characters together, and then they just slowly fade away. Yeah, it was just kind of a weird cathartic moment. Yeah, it was cool. I like that.
I equally love that one. I love the music for that, and it's become one of my favorite classical music pieces as a result of it being used specifically in that moment.
The nice part of that too is everything went the way they planned it, and it's almost like them saying, we want to revel in this, and we don't want to quite break up yet, because we want to continue the afterglow. So yeah, it's a nice scene.
I feel like as well as that there's a sense that they're still kind of on the job in those moments as well, because like they can't, like as you say, they can't over celebrate, otherwise people are like, oh, look at them, like why are they like cheering? Yeah, maybe they've won, the jackpot on craps or something on the craps table. But yeah, it's still a great moment. Did you say your favorite scene, Thomas?
Yeah, I mean, I've picked out a few of them. I think the other thing that, since I've kind of already done it, the music on this one, to me, setting a mood, a tone, a pace to the film. He has some really great musical choices throughout, whether it's kind of the throwback feel of the jazzy favorites to some of the stuff that's upbeat outside of it. And there's just so much comedy that's involved in this, but the music adds to the ambiance of it. And I know we mentioned Out of Sight before, but I feel like that's the training wheels for this movie. This is where he gets a bigger budget, he has a larger cast, and he gets to take all of the chances that he didn't quite have the opportunity to do in Out of Sight, and gets to put them in this movie. And this is where he excels at it. To me, it would be really hard for you to provide me anybody else who could do this movie. Much in the same way that I criticized Michael Clayton on part one for being at kind of just slightly above replacement level director due to its simplicity. I don't know if there's anybody else, especially at the time at which it was made, that could have made this movie.
I feel like if this film was made now, I feel like there could be other directors that could make it, because I mean, every other film of this ilk, you'd feel like a director would be able to give the film like a great like Soderberghian style, but obviously it feels like Soderbergh is kind of not invented, but like this is certainly a heist film you always go to when you think of a heist film that has a particular stylish style to it, really, that gives it some flair, gives the heist genre some flair. So
I'm not sure I would agree with that notion, because to me, it's maybe one director every generation or so that has this in their bag. And it's only because this is a very specific type of movie, the con artist movie, that it's either made really well or made really poorly. There are a lot of really bad ones, but you need charismatic star leads that can just be movie stars, combined with basically a generational director who understands, and I don't mean generational as in like generationally great, but just the one that has that ability to create a certain aesthetic and lighter tone combined with it. The only other one where I would say it excels to this level won Best Picture, and that's George Roy Hill doing The Sting.
Yeah.
Outside of that, Soderbergh and George Roy Hill might be the only two that I remember that did this kind of a thing, pulled this specific type of a movie out of their bag.
I could name two directors more modern that I think might have that ability.
All right, check me.
Rian Johnson.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. All right. I get you on that one.
And to some extent, Damien Chazelle.
No, I would draw the line at Johnson there, because Chazelle, given that he writes his own stuff, yes, he'd be okay with the musical choices for this, but I don't think he, in any of his movies, does he create a humorous tone in the way that this has a lighter fare.
Oh,
he's always kind of going for the sentimental as opposed to the humorous. Whereas Rian Johnson, I would agree, given the nature of how the Knives Out films are, he could create a similar aesthetic to this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with Rian Johnson as well, because like I've not seen Babylon, but I don't think maybe Chazelle would have that kind of lightness of touch that Soderbergh has. Yes, you have La La Land, but that's very specifically like his bag of a very straight up musical. So, yeah.
The reason I even said Giselle is because when I watch Babylon, there are some scenes where he wrote them that the situation is so absurd. That's where the humor lies.
Okay.
But only you and I got that. And that's why I'm saying it's a really difficult line to walk for these types of movies. You have to create it like it's a drama with some comedy mixed in. And so if you go too humorous, it ruins the balance.
Yeah.
If you go too serious or too sentimental, it ruins the balance. You have to have somebody that creates kind of this walk between. And so maybe that's why I'm kind of drawn. Part of the reason for doing these episodes is because Wolves, just came out. Does John Watts have that ability to walk that fine line between kind of the action sequences and the humor parts of it?
Yeah,
absolutely. So directing score for me then for Ocean's 11. Yeah, I think I'll go fairly high. Yeah, it's just a good time, just a great style and flair to it. And I feel like he doesn't try to do too much, especially in the beginning. Again, like you're just eased in, you're letting the movie stars kind of eat up the screen, and then Soderbergh kind of subtly brings his own kind of character to the film as you go once you're really in it. So I'll go like an 8.6 for me. How about you guys?
I'm a little bit divided on this one, Dad, because while I maintain that he's one of the few guys that could pull something like this off, and especially at the time that it was made, probably the only person that I could think of that could really pull this club out of the bag. It's still not like a grade A. We're not looking at this as like truly one of the greatest films of all time. It's one of the more entertaining films of the last 30 years, at least between you and I. But that doesn't mean that it's up there with stuff that Christopher Nolan is doing. And I know that's hard to like compare like to like in certain ways. The con man heist film that he did, Inception, is just a completely different movie than in Ocean's 11. They're going for different things. But for a team up movie, he got the balance correctly. He's one of the few that could probably do this. He creates a character to itself, which is his directorial style, between the music, the editing, the humor, the balance within the film. I'm torn. I think I kind of come down at an 8.5.
Okay. The biggest problem I think we have in films and what the Academy has in general is that we lose sight. We look at everything has to be in this artistic, sweet spot. It has to be serious and it has to have a poignant. What's wrong with having things that are just entertaining, that people love, that are done so well that people have just they value them by their entertainment quality. And I think we lose sight of that. It's one of the reasons why the Academy has done horribly at nominating and giving awards to comedies in general. And then looking back, when I first started really paying attention to the Academy, I was in high school. It was 1982 2, which I said the best film that year was actually Tootsie. Gandhi won. And I said, well, of course Gandhi wins because it's the art film. Tootsie is the comedy, even though I think Tootsie had a lot to say. And the performances and the style of it were really excellent. So, but again, that's where it comes down to. I would agree with you, Tom, that this is a well done film, and there's not a spot in here that I think drags. It's well conceived. The shot selection, I mean, everything from, the reveal was brilliantly done. The scene with when Julia Roberts is introduced, it's just her coming down the stairs. There's all kinds of those scenes that are just done so well. I guess I had originally an 8, but I'll go to your 8.5.
All right.
8.5 is locked in. Right. Screenplay then. The film has a very typical heist movie structure, I would say, which certainly allows the style of the film to really come through. The pacing is really good. There are no scenes that feel like they're out of place or outstay their welcome. But I think stylish filmmaking can only go so far. Soderbergh does put some tension in there where the electrician guy is fiddling with these security camera wires so Clooney and Pitt can see the security cameras, and the nervous electrician can't find his way back because his hands are too sweaty. That had the map drawn on it, and one of the casino staff catches up with him and says, did you drop this? That's just the tension in the first half of the film, really. That's it. So it feels quite plain sailing. So apart from that, but there's still one big movie star we haven't seen yet, and that's Julia Roberts. And when Brad Pitt sees her, it's revealed that Clooney wants his wife back, and not just the money, which adds this emotional edge to the film, certainly for Clooney's character moving forward. So the first hour is pretty casual, really, and there's just that one moment of tension with that electrician character until we get to the Julia Roberts moment where I wouldn't say everything turns on its head, but it kind of just gets more emotionally interesting for Clooney's character. So it's just an interesting start, I would say, in that first hour. That's the first hour certainly feels more of a hangout film than the last hour.
The number one way where I would say that the structure is just slightly different is that even though we have to have the eventual solution revealed to us, it still requires a reveal in that even though we've been following these guys up throughout, we supposedly know all of the steps that they've been taking. We know the rough contours of what they're trying to pull off. There are still several different moments in this where we kind of have this surprise, especially in the ending. So when Bruiser is beating him up, and then when it's, oh, well, I paid you off. He's a good friend. He allows me to go into the elevator shaft. We've kind of duped Matt Damon in on this one a little bit. Or the checking of the batteries with the remote, or the SWAT team reveal, any of those little moments within the course of things. And to be fair, the fact that Brad Pitt plays the doctor, he plays the SWAT team leader, and he's the guy on the phone with Terry Benedict. How the fuck does he not recognize that the guy's voice is the same?
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely a moment where I was just how does he not? I mean, I recognized that it was Brad Pitt's voice when he was down there in the vault dressed as a SWAT guy before it's revealed. I'm like, that's Brad Pitt.
Well, not to mention that he was in a room with Linus playing somebody else. And then he's the one who's most audibly yelling during the SWAT team situation. There's too many overlaps where you gave certain characters the speaking roles that just seems to betray your own knowledge, but you kind of surrender to it because it's part of the film. I mean, again, now that I've watched it 40-ish times, the fact that I can pick apart this movie is somewhat out of love compared to normal films where I'm just like, this doesn't stand to reason at all. But, what part of the comedy is written down and what part of it is the timing, the editing, the stylistic choices, and the rest of it. I mean, I don't think this is a particularly like uniquely well written screenplay, but it's not bad. I just think that where the movie excels or where it gets its plaudits for me is going to be in direction and maybe to a degree acting.
Let me just ask this. Let me throw this out. You know, it's not unusual to not recognize those voices. How many times have you been to a doctor's office and the nurse comes in and does all the preliminary stuff, asks you the questions about what your symptoms are, checks your blood pressure, such, walks out the door, and if she were to talk to you the next day, you would, without seeing her, she calls you on the phone, that you would not have in a million years recognize that was who did everything. And you've spent 15, 20 minutes with her in the doctor's office the day before. That's what they're counting on with the fact that they've got multiple guys playing different parts, is that you're not paying attention. There's nothing about it. In fact, when he goes through that bit with Linus, with Matt Damon's character, you have to be believable. You want to make yourself unmemorable so that he forgets you within 5 minutes of you leaving. That's what they're counting on.
I think there is some really kind of interesting like surprises in, you know, the actual heist in the second half of the film. Like I like how that they only have like a vague idea of how they're going to pull this off. Like, you know, everybody's role and you know all the obstacles in front of them. You know that the Chinese guy, Chen, I think he's called, is going to hide in the money box thing and is going to like jump out in the vault, and that's it. So I like how they kind of keep a lot of the plan under wraps, and you're learning how these guys are going to pull this off as they go. But what's really clever is that things that you think are going wrong are actually part of the plan. Like when you think like Clooney is out of the job because of his attachment to his wife, so Pitt recruits Matt Damon to do the Clooney role in lifting the codes from Andy Garcia. Like Clooney gets caught and is taken to this storeroom, but Clooney ends up meeting Matt Damon in the elevator. Plus, you think Soul is getting really sick watching the package on the monitor with the security guys, and he faints, and you think it's going seriously wrong. No, it's a distraction for the electrician to change the monitor screen to hide Matt Damon in the elevator. So I love how the film kind of plays with your nerves in a way, so you're never sure what's part of the plan as the heist goes on, you know. So that was kind of a fun part of the heist, rather than just experiencing how clever they are. You're like, hang on a minute, is this part of the plan or is things going horribly wrong?
I still don't think they should have sent Elliot Gould and Saul down with the SWAT team, but okay.
No. Yeah. Some of that chest hair might have come through. You never know. So.
Yeah.
I think also what I like towards the end during the heist is that Brad Pitt like calls Andy Garcia to tell him that he's being robbed, that his casino is being robbed. That rarely happens, I don't think, in heist movies. Like the owner of the money usually finds out that he's been robbed until it's too late. You know, so Pitt and co are taking like a huge risk in telling Andy Garcia because they're assuming what he's going to do in reaction to him being told he's being robbed. But what's clever is that Pitt gives him an ultimatum, essentially, that Andy Garcia's men take half the money out and the other half will be booby-trapped. But of course, Pitt is counting on Andy Garcia to try and outsmart him. Andy Garcia's, gets the SWAT team in to try and secure the money, and that's in the vault already. But of course, Pitt and co are the SWAT team and just walks out with the money. So I love that you should never really trust anything Brad Pitt says in this film. So yeah, I just love the fact that the twists kind of keep coming. I mean, there's like 2 or 3, I guess, but it feels like at certain points in the film, like they've shown all their cards. No, there's still more to come. Yes, that was a cool last couple of scenes in this film.
Yeah, it keeps you inside on the joke while not actually keeping you inside on the joke.
Yeah. Cool and interesting lines, people. There are a bunch, I think. She left me once. I don't think she'd do it again just for kicks. That was good.
Rusty, you scared? Linus, You suicidal? Rusty, only in the morning.
It's just so inexplicable.
I love the little banter between like Brad Pitt and Clooney after what feels like a dramatic, emotional scene, to the extent of this film goes to, really, but where I think Pitt says, "You've been practicing that speech, haven't you?" Yeah, a little bit. I did. Did I rush it? I feel like I rushed it. No, it was good. I liked it, so that was a good little bit for me.
I think where this film works best is usually in its kind of quippiness and the humor lines. So, for instance, and for God's sakes, whatever you do, don't, under any circumstances. Russ, yeah? Come look at this. Sure.
That was great.
And he's just like, you never know what it is that you're supposed to do.
Matt Damon's like, help.
Ted Nugent called. He wants his suit back or his shirt back.
Yeah, I love that one.
That's the right at the end, isn't it? Yeah.
$13 million and you came across country and picked me up in this piece of shit.
12:44. No, it's 12:46. Get a watch that works. I've used that in so many people. Oh, he's a balloon boy.
I love the one from Soul where Clooney has just laid out the plan and he's like, yeah, say we do all that. We're just supposed to walk out of there with 150 million in cash on us without getting stopped. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Elliot Gould and Matt Damon out by the pool. Oh, you must be Bobby Caldwell's kid from Chicago. You like it there? Yeah. Oh, it's nice. Get in the goddamn house.
Yeah, what are you doing? Follow everyone in. Come on, you're part of the team.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's kind of, even though I would say to a degree, like, they all came up around the same time. Like, Clooney didn't get famous until about the same time that Matt Damon got famous, and Brad Pitt had been around for a few more years, but he didn't get, like, Brad Pitt famous until probably roughly around the same time that Matt Damon really started. So it's not like they're that far generationally off, but he's always treated as the kid in these movies until like by the third one where he's kind of like the third lead, even though he's the most comedic character by the end of it. So it's interesting, but you'll also have to forgive me for this one and my poor recreation of a very poor accent, but you tosses, you've got one job to do.
That's better than Don Cheadle. I'll say that.
Low bar.
Low bar. That is the sexiest thing I've ever seen. From Soul.
I guess if we're going to do a serious one that isn't just like these quippy ones that we're laughing at, the one that has probably more universal application, because the house always wins. Play long enough, you never change the stakes, the house takes you. Unless when the perfect hand comes along, you bet big, and then you take the house.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Does he make you laugh? He doesn't make me cry.
Yeah, that's a poignant one, I guess, from Julia Roberts. But I think my favorite is certainly a funny one, and it's when Brad Pitt is dressed as the Doctor, and he announces that Saul is dead, and he says, "We've lost him," and then Casey Affleck and the other dude comes in, and he says, "Dude, I told you to hurry." That makes me laugh every time I watch that again. That was so good.
They might as well call it White Jack.
Oh god, yeah. Right, screenplay score for me. Yeah, it's pretty slick. It goes at a really good pace. Loads of memorable lines. Yeah, I think my favorite aspect of the film is what I said. Like when you are following the heist, and you're really not sure in moments whether it's actually going very dramatically wrong. No, it's actually part of the plan. So I enjoyed that aspect a lot. And yeah, just the interplay with the lines between Clooney and Pitt and some of the other characters are really good. And as you say, guys, there's some really great, like, kind of more serious lines in there as well. And yeah, it's really satisfying, and it's almost kind of underplayed as well when they complete the heist, which is a cool little moment in those last couple of scenes. So yeah, I'll go like a 8.2 for me.
Oh, that's much higher than I was thinking. I don't know about you, Dad, but because I mean, if you could definitely say that all the jokes and the lines and such were a part of this, I still would have to take points off because a lot of the humor I still think is created by either the directorial nature or the editing, more particularly given the timing of things. And so by that nature, even though it's very funny, the structure's still somewhat simple. And yes, there are reveals, but I still put that more on direction. So I had this at about a 7.
I was at an 8 because the lines still have to be written. They can fall flat with improper direction, but they still have to. You still have to have the ability to write the situation and the line to make it humorous. You want to split it?
Yeah, that's fine.
7.5?
Yep.
Cool. Right, acting. I loved Brad Pitt's introduction to the film where he's at this card game with, frankly, idiots, as we've said already. They're playing like 5-card draw poker, and Topher Grace is like, I've got all reds, and it's not a flush at all. And Brad Pitt's face is just brilliant, just like, fuck's sake, what am I doing here? You know, he's not doing much at all, but it's definitely, just really great in that moment. Very funny.
I think it's a well-cast ensemble film, and I think that, to a degree, is what makes the film, because I don't think there's any one true standout performance. If there is one, to me, it's probably Pitt. I think he exudes a little bit more than Clooney to a degree. He feels more like the linchpin character in the film, as kind of the pseudo leader, even though it's Ocean's 11. You know, he's the guy that's kind of the lead on a lot of the plan unfolding. He takes a central role when it comes to the reveal of the plan. He has less personally at stake in everything that's going on. He's kind of the voice of reason of a lot of things that are going on in the film. So his steadfast nature, I think, makes him stand out. But the other characters, almost down to a T. I mean, they have great casting, whether it's Elliot Gould. I still actually think Don Cheadle's good in the movie, even if his accent is weird. You know, so the Malloy brothers, whether it's Scott Conn or Casey Affleck, before either of them went on to do other things, but they have a good dynamic between the two of them that you feel like they could actually be twins, even though they look nothing like each other at all. And even, Damon, I've always enjoyed Matt Damon. So to have him in a role where he's kind of the kid of the group to a degree, I think helps a little bit, kind of round things out. For that matter, you have a decent enough villain where he's not overpowering, but he's just kind of a very plain villain. But because there's no requirement for a lot of these to be anything more than like simple movie star, like several of these are good character actor performances, but from the leads that the entire movie sold upon, like, I can't really say that Brad Pitt's doing like a really big Brad Pitt acting role, not in the way that he does like Moneyball or Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. He doesn't need to. The film would be weird if he's like making anything extra character wise. I mean, it's weird enough that he's eating in almost every scene that he's in. But Clooney, by the same token, doesn't need to be anything more than movie star Clooney when he shows up for these. I think that's why he enjoyed doing them. One, they enjoyed making them with each other. I think it's kind of a legendary cast situation where they all just enjoyed being together and working on these movies together. And it was kind of like a semi-vacation. But at the same time, I just don't see that any of them really had to stretch themselves in any real acting capacity. Even Julia Roberts, who may have to do like the most emotional acting, it's just kind of like, you're the jilted wife. You've played this probably 7 times by now. It's not like a stretch.
I feel like the film does a slight disservice to Julia Roberts. Yeah, she's certainly, portraying a very stereotypical character, and she does come into the film very late, but a very specific moment for the script. But yeah, it would have been nice to maybe seen a little bit more, I guess. Yeah, just a little bit more from Julia Roberts, maybe, because she is like third build, maybe. I can't remember.
But well, I think she's 4th, right behind Damon.
Right.
But if it's not, it's 3rd, and then Damon, and then Andy Garcia, I think, was the other one that was like 5th or 6th on the list.
Yeah, it would have been nice to just see a little bit more of her, I think. Especially as she's really the only significant female cast member in this film. So
yeah.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit more about Andy Garcia. I think he's a great villain, really, and he doesn't have to really do much to really give off this very menacing feel. And yes, I guess at times it does feel like he's just stepped off like The Godfather Part 3 or something like that. And and there is like one moment where he does get a bit shouty, but which is great. But again, he like those scenes with Clooney, he just brings off this very like quiet menace, which I enjoyed. Do you like Andy Garcia, guys?
Yeah, I think he does exactly what is needed in the film. He doesn't have to be showy. He doesn't have to do a lot. I don't think, again, anybody's having to do a lot, but this is seemingly a character that Andy Garcia has played in many films up to this point. And so by that standpoint, it was just a better function of casting than anything else. He shows up, he has kind of a quiet, as you said, menacing nature to him. He's very stern, but a lot of the additives or the adjectives that you would describe him with has more to do with how other people talk about him. When it's the descriptor scene of, how he goes through and he processes his day, or we're talking about Elliot Gould's description of him and how he torpedoed his casino, and so he's a ruthless, meticulous guy. Or there's the nature of the conversation between Linus and Rusty, where they talk about he bankrupted the brother-in-law's tractor dealership. There's the additive things that are part of the script, but that have nothing to do with him necessarily. He has one real key moment, or I should say two. The one where he has to interact with Danny at the dinner table, I think is a key moment. And then when he takes the phone call from Rusty, those are the two moments where he has to really come to the forefront, and he does a very sufficient job. I don't think like he's comedic in the same way. He doesn't have to be. It's not required in this. So he gets to be kind of just classic actor bad guy. He's not mustache twirly. He's not, a caricature. So he fits with what you need in this role. So by that standpoint, he accomplishes the bill. Does he raise the level of the film at all? No. Did he need to? No.
No, I think certainly in some scenes, I feel like because of his presence in the film, like sometimes I got the feeling that maybe he knows something that our heroes don't in some moments, like a little bit, because of that just very stern persona that he gives off, but only in a few moments, I would say.
When I watch it, and I know Tom and I have had this conversation multiple times, but in my office, I'm considered to be rather intimidating to the staff. Okay.
Right.
Rather intimidating. There are employees that have literally quote saying, anytime he like calls me, I piss myself.
Okay. And I never completely understood it. And then I've been told, well, it's because of the way I present myself. It's the expression on my face. I look intense, etc. That's what Andy Garcia in this is. He created a persona of this guy is just a really focused, ruthless badass. And then the script adds stuff to flesh it out. But I mean, if they're telling you that he not only, bankrupted this guy, but bankrupted his brother's tractor dealership, if he doesn't have that sense of just, you can't intimidate me, there's nothing you can say or do that's going to hurt me, I am completely in control of my situation, and I can run things the way I want. If he doesn't come across that way, that stuff falls flat. So to that extent, he fulfilled the character from the screenplay.
I think the only other moment that I really liked, just a little small thing, is where near the start where George Clooney appears at the poker game, and you can tell that straight away that Brad Pitt and Clooney are conning these guys, trying to make them, bet more. And of course, Clooney wins the big hand. And I love the little bit when they both exit the club and they just look at each other, don't say anything, and they just walk off. And it kind of just feels like they're saying with their body language, right, let's go to work. It just felt very cool. And just, it just highlights their star quality in that little moment at the start. Just a small thing, but just like they don't even have to say anything to each other to say, right, let's do this heist now. Let's go.
Yeah.
I still don't think that there's particularly good chemistry between Julia Roberts and George Clooney. Like, I think there's actually better in the one that they had as the parents on that. It wasn't couples retreat, but they're going to their daughter's wedding last year or whatever it was.
Yeah.
I think they actually have better chemistry in that, where you feel like they have a past relationship. This one, you kind of get a sense for it, but the writing is not particularly strong for Julia Roberts' character. And the kind of flip that she makes by the end, where it's just simply, oh, would you give up your girlfriend for all the money? Yes. Okay. Well, that's one thing to dump him. It's another thing then to take back your loser ex-husband that went to prison and just torpedoed your life and made you have to leave New York in order to get away from everything else that you were associated with. And you've now rebuilt your life. You're going to go back to him? Now, that's probably closer to reality because people get back with people that they used to be with for all weird reasons that defy logic. But in a narrative sense, it makes absolutely no earthly idea why that even happens. It's like, I hate him 1 minute and then I love him again the next. Okay, fine.
I've never understood that. It's like, well, this milk is sour, so let's put it back in the refrigerator and see if it gets better the second time I try it.
Yeah. It definitely gives off a very stereotypical Hollywood ending, really.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think she is the weirdest addition to this entire cast and crew. When they try and give her a bigger part in Ocean's 12, I really don't think it particularly works. And by the time they get to 13, we're like, we don't know what to do with you. We're just going to write you out.
Yeah.
So it actually makes more sense when it's just about the guys and about being kind of a bro camaraderie film than it is to include her.
They could have taken somebody that Soderbergh met at his waitress at the breakfast that morning and put her in that role, and it probably would have worked just about as well.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know if I quite go that far, but yes, you could have easily gotten just about any regular actress to be able to fill out that role. The difference is that on the poster, Julia Roberts' name sells in 2001.
Yeah. And for her, it's probably, well, we're going to pay you this amount of money and you don't have to do anything except hang around with Brad Pitt and George Clooney all day.
And you're only really in half the movie.
Yeah.
Not even.
Yeah. It sounds like a great opportunity. I mean, pay me a lot of money and I can sit around and, spend time with George Clooney and Brad Pitt. I'd be happy.
Yeah. I'll take that.
Yep. I'll have what they're having.
Yeah. Thomas, favorite performance for you?
It's Pitt. I think he's the linchpin of the film. He's got the steely resolve.
He's having the most fun, isn't he? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Also, I mean, not that all the food he's eating is necessarily like all of my favorites, but just the fact that he gets to do that like star power move of I'm going to eat in every frickin' scene because that's how I act. That's like, yeah, I'm a star and you're going to do what I want.
You can definitely play food eating bingo or something for this movie for sure.
Yeah, I'm not going with the shrimp cocktail, but the nachos, yeah, definitely. I could go with some nachos. A lollipop works, depending on the type of lollipop. I don't know if I'd go for the frozen yogurt, but you give me a DQ Blizzard, I'm good with that.
Yeah, I think I'll go with Brad Pitt as well. I think, just with the fact that I think he's just having the most fun, really. Yeah, he's great. Dana?
I would round it out, but since I would just be basically repeating everything both of you have said, I'm going to go to one of my personal favorites, and that's Carl Reiner. Sure. I grew up with the Dick Van Dyke Show, which was Carl Reiner's creation. He played Alan Brady, the boss, the guy that was the star of the show that Dick Van Dyke wrote for. I went back and watched clips from your show of shows and the Sid Caesar Hour that he starred on with Sid Caesar in the 50s. I tried to find whether they wrote this part with him in mind or if it just dawned on them that he could do this part. But these are characters that, you know, in all three of the films, the parts he does, they're all parts that were characters that he did at some point in time on television back in the 50s and 60s. It was just refreshing to see him. But at this point in time when he's in this, he had been directing and had kind of retired. All of a sudden, they just pull him out of nowhere, coming back. I bet he hadn't acted really in 20 years. You know, he's about 80 when this film was done. About 80. And, you know, just beautiful that they were able to use the talents he had proven to have over a long career and use them so brilliantly in this film.
Yeah, he's great as well. Definitely brings some great humor to a lot of the scenes that he's in, especially that one where he's just like, do you expect us to, you know, walk out with all of this money? And Clooney's like, yeah. Oh, okay. You know, that's a great moment. So acting score for me, yeah, I think as we've all kind of said, a lot of these actors are kind of playing themselves to a certain extent, using their star quality to really elevate this film to what it is. I must say, Don Cheadle does bring my score quite far down.
I wondered about that.
I was just like, ooh, what did he just use there? Because it ain't English. Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I will go. Okay. Do I go high sixes or low sevens? Yeah, I'll go like a 6.8 for me. How about you guys?
I added it a 7, Dad. He mentioned many of the points that I would have already brought up, which is it's more charisma than it is actual acting performance. And while that does require some level of build up with the audience, it's still movie star performances as opposed to acting performances. So I have it at 7.
Actually, I had a 7 as well.
All right.
You know, and I understand the debate, you know, and I remember Burt Reynolds doing an interview years ago when he said that, you know, people said, well, it was just Burt Reynolds being Burt Reynolds. And he said he started doing that when he was a young actor because he happened to run into Spencer Tracy. And Spencer Tracy said that if they can tell you're acting, you're not acting. Be yourself. And so I've often had that dilemma of where does that point change? John Wayne was always John Wayne. But was that acting? Or was that him using his own talents and his own personality to flesh out a character? And is that acting? So,
okay, there are some that are more universal than others that can play an everyman because they feel so very average. Like Tom Hanks can play a grown-up kid through some weird miracle. He can play a World War II sergeant. He can play the, widower.
Phillips.
Yeah, he can play a shipboat captain. Jimmy Stewart could do the same thing. It's just degrees of who you are as a person. Jack Nicholson could play the kind of weird next door neighbor. He could play the private eye. He wasn't as universal, but he found niches within his own work to be able to play certain characters. But there was always a slight loose thread that he could go manic at any point in time. That was Jack Nicholson. Likewise, that seems to be everybody's character. The only person that really, if you're talking about true transformations, there's only 2 that I think never were, like, from movie to movie, were different people. And that's going to be DDL, and that's going to be
Daniel Day-Lewis.
Yes. And Sophie's Choice.
Meryl Streep.
And Meryl Streep.
Yeah. Okay.
Those are like the only 2 that they seem to transform in every role that they're in.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that.
Maybe some character actors, like you could basically say that. Like character actors, because they're performing different characters, have a more difficult job, and it's partly based on the writing, and they have a degree. But then again, we've felt that character actors, to a degree, are actually better actors than the usual lead or star performers to begin with. So maybe I'd give that, but like as far as lead performances, there's only those two. Everybody else is playing just degrees of themselves in a different situation.
Right, let's add up the scores then for Ocean's 11.
Again, I appreciate not having to do the math myself.
Yep. Ocean's 11 gets 46.6. So Michael Clayton wins this one. I win another episode. What's going on, people? This isn't right. I'm slowly clawing it back. So next episode as Joker Folie à Deux, or however you want to say that in any particular French accent, go ahead. We are talking R-rated comic book films 2, as we have done one in the past. And I think that one was Logan versus V for Vendetta was the first one.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
I like both of those, yeah.
And we'll have another returning guest for that one. Lee from Lights Camera Rant is joining me again. Always a good time with him. Guys, you have been amazing. It's great talking to you about these films. Yeah, great hearing your insights. This is your opportunity again to tell us about your podcast and where can we find you?
So, yes, greatest movie of all time podcast. Don't add the. There was another podcast started about the same time that we were that had the. So if you search the greatest movie of all time podcast, you will not find us. But we're available on all the major podcasting platforms. We do have video now that we started over the summer, although all of our episodes are up on YouTube as well. So you can find that at youtube.com/GMOAT podcast, GMOAT. We are currently in the middle of a couple of revisit episodes. We're about to release, at the time of this recording, our Pulp Fiction revisit that will come out this Wednesday. And then we have the Shawshank Redemption coming out next Wednesday with Kieran B. of the Best Picture cast. He's coming on to discuss his favorite movie. And then after that, we have one in a couple of weeks with our most frequent guest and a new guest of ours, Mike Emal from Cinemus, is going to be coming on to do Anatomy of a Murder, the Otto Preminger film with James Stewart from 1959. I believe that we'll be celebrating its, save me from math, I think 65th anniversary. Mm-hmm. That sounds about right.
Yep.
Coming up in a couple of weeks. So we have some exciting things to round out the rest of the year. We have a lot of guests still to come. A lot of things coming up here in this fall season because there are a lot of anniversaries to celebrate that we will be doing on our show. But you can catch all of those or any of our back episodes at GMOAT Podcast. Again, GMOAT. You can find us on most of the major, not most, all of the major podcasting platforms and on our socials, Instagram, Twitter, Letterboxd, and TikTok at GMOAT Podcast.
Excellent. Right, it's time to say goodbye, people. I know it's very sad. It's very sad. Right, it's goodbye from Dana. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And it's goodbye from Thomas. Bye.
Good night, Gracie.
And it's goodbye from me. I'm gonna plan my next heist and basically steal some cookies from the cookie jar, basically, just to see how elaborate I can make that. Bye-bye.
Come on, you Spurs.
Yes, and that too. Bye-bye. That's it for part 2. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. Check out part 1 if you haven't done so already. But don't stop there. Get involved and tell me what your favourite films are relating to the episodes. Send us a DM or comment on Instagram and TikTok at Film vs. Film Podcast, for X at FVF_podcast. Plus, we are now on YouTube, so hit that like button and comment there. If you do, I'll give you a shout out on the next episode. Remember, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. Pod signing off. Thank you.